first question many people will have about the 2021 release Trails is how it compares to the 2019 release Parks, which is by the same designer, Henry Audubon, has the same artist, the 59 Parks Group, and the same publisher, Keymaster Games. First, easy answer, Parks is bigger. Has a different player count, 1 to 5 versus 2 to 4. It takes longer to play. There's probably other differences too, but I will confess that I have not played Parks, so I cannot give a direct comparison between the two games, but the people who I have played Trails with have all played Parks, and they relayed plenty of differences that I can talk about once I give you an overview of how this game works. Here are the components for Trails set up for a 3-player game. Your goal in the game is to score the most points, and you will earn points by collecting merit badges and photographs. You have a central game board that is composed of 7 tiles, and the 5 central tiles are shuffled and laid out at random, with the end tiles being flipped on one side or another based on the player count. During the game, you'll travel back and forth on the trail, turning around at each end, doing some stuff until someone triggers the end of the game. On a turn, you can move 1 or 2 spaces forward, and then take the action that is shown on the bottom of the tile. In this case, you can spend any of your resources, with the resource types being stone, acorns, and leaves, to take a photo action. And when you take a photo action, you either take the top card of the discard pile and keep it, or draw 2 cards from the deck, look at them in secret, and keep one of them, discarding the other. This is worth 1 point, this is worth 0 points, and a bird, and the player who collects the most birds or sees the most birds will score 4 points at the end of the game. So you keep one of them of your choice and discard the other. And if the deck runs out, you flip over the discards and replay from there. So each other player will take an action. Maybe they move ahead and collect a leaf. You can share spaces in Trails, which is one difference from Parks. In Parks, you can share space only if you expend your campfire. Here, go wherever someone else is. That's fine. Your limitation is more on your movement, whereas in Parks, you can move freely. Here, you can move only 1 or 2 spaces unless you spend your canteen. If you spend your canteen, you can move any number of spaces forward to the end of the trail where you must stop. On my turn, I can again move 1 or 2 spaces to get a leaf, or I can go here, and you get a bonus action whenever you land where the bear is located. I guess the bear is very generous, and instead of eating you, is going to give you a reward based on whatever you roll on the die. So you don't know what you're getting, but you're getting something. You also take the action on this space, and you can do that before or after the die roll. So I do this, roll the die, this goes to the leaf space, and I get the action on that space. So if the bear landed here, I could expend a resource for a photo action. Here, I can expend a resource for 2 of one other resource. Or maybe it just would stay where I am and I get another acorn. Luckily, it went here, which means the other players do not get a bear action until they get to the end of the trail and turn around and start back. So sometimes you want to get a jump on the bear just so you can possibly mess up other people, but of course it could have just ended up on any of these spaces. So you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So other people take their turns. Maybe I want to swap, but actually I don't, because I'm just going to use my canteen, go to the end, and when you get to the end, you're going to turn around. You get the bonus where the sun is located. In this case, I get a rock. You move the sun 1 space to the left, and now you can buy merit badges depending on whether you can afford to get them. So with these 2 leaves, I can get this badge, which is worth 1 point, and then gives me a resource of my choice. And based on my badge in my hand, each player has 1 in their hand in addition to the 2 being at the end of the trail. I will pick up a leaf, and now I will spend 2 acorns and a leaf to get this badge, which is worth 2 points. It has a bird, and it gives me a bear action. So maybe people will get to do a bear after all. Nope. I go to the photo, and I can choose to spend this or not to get the photo action. So in this case, 2 points or nothing but a bird. I'll take the 2 points. The photo deck in general is 0 to 2 points. There's 1 3-point card. There's 1 or 2 double bird cards. So that's the range. It's a relatively small range of what you're going to get, with the whole point really being to disguise how many birds you're getting. Some birds are going to be public on the badges, but often, for the most part, they're hidden in the photos. At the end of my turn, you refill the public area, draw again, so you always have one badge hidden in your hand that you can score, and then on my next turn, I will start back. When other players land here, they will get the reward for the sun. This will move over again. And when the sun leaves one of these central tiles, you flip it over, and now the reward is generally better. So land on this space now, and you get 2 rocks instead of 1. This will be 2 acorns, 2 leaves. This one's not strictly better. In fact, it can sometimes mess up your plans depending on when it flips. You hand in 1 resource and you get 1 of each of the other 2 resources. Not strictly better. Sometimes you really needed 2 of a kind if you're trying to get 4 acorns, or 5 of a kind, which is the best or most expensive card out there. The photo action, you just get a free photo. You no longer have to expend the resource for it. You're going to keep taking actions until the sun comes over here to the leftmost tile. Whoever would land on the end when the sun is at this space will get a bear action. Once the sun is over here, person lands here, they get a photo action, and then they take the sun away. And that only indicates that you don't get a bonus if you get to the end of the trail, and each other player has 1 turn left. That's it. So you have to prepare for that, because you might get stuck not being able to get to the end of the trail, because that is often the only place you're going to get points. Maybe you can get to the photos where you'll get 1 or 2 points, but often you will have a bunch of resources where you can get many badges at once and get a huge benefit. So you definitely want to get to the end of a trail at the end of the game. You refresh your canteen only when you get back to the beginning of the trail. So on my next turns, these would not be flipped yet, of course. On my next turns, I can move only 1 or 2 spaces, so it will take at least 3 turns to get home. Possibly more, because this space is useless to me, so maybe I want a rock. And now I go here, and now it's taking at least 4 turns to get back home. So the pace of the game can be slow, but of course you control it based on how quickly you want to spend this canteen. And the board gets more valuable as the game goes on, with you getting double resources from these spaces and a free photo action. So you escalate the number of resources you get, which allows more buying here, and you can watch other people's point totals sort of escalate as the game progresses and they get these big purchases, especially because some of the bonuses on the cards themselves will give you more ability to get things done, such as this one, which gives you the sun bonus wherever the sun is currently located. Or this one, it gives you additional points if you have the bird bonus at the end of the game. Okay, that doesn't help you during the game, but it gives you an additional reason to get stuff. This one is worth only 1 point for 4 acorns, which is terrible, but you get to earn another badge for free. So if you are pocketing something, let's say this one, you get to lay that down for free, and suddenly you get 6 points for those 4 acorns. Actually 7 points, because you get this one as well. But otherwise this is not very valuable. Some of the other badges you can get, I'll show these. Let's see, what else do I have? All right, other badges. This one gets you that trade action that's down here. This one is worth 1 point per banner. There are 3 different banners that match the resources here, so you want to specialize in acorn related merit badges. Should you get this? One game, person got 7 points off this. Everything came together for them. This, you take 2 photo actions in a row. So draw 2 cards, discard 1, draw 2 cards, discard 1. You do it twice in a row, or pick up off the discard pile. This gives you this. You can purchase at a discount based on the number of stone badges you already have. Anything else to mention? Bear, points, this. You'll recognize many of these very quickly because you have the same sort of assortment of badges throughout the entire deck. I've played Trails 7 times on our review copy from Keymaster Games, once with 4 players, twice with 3, and 4 times with 2. And the game feels very much like an archetype of modern game design, one in which, like many other games, you get stuff and then you transform that stuff into points. That's what you're doing over and over again. And the game system is very straightforward. You have 3 types of resources that are mixed together in various ways across the badges, and you just have to have the right element of resources to transform them into points. And there's no difference between acorns and leaves and rocks. They're just 3 things. They could be any 3 things. And they're just assembled in different ways on the badges. And ideally, you can do this more efficiently than everyone else in order to transform things properly and end up with the most points. There is little competition for the resources because people can share spaces and there is a limit to the number of resources in the game, but we have never run out, even in the 4-player game, because there is an 8 resource limit and you must discard down to 8 at the end of your turn. So there is almost no chance of someone hogging something and just taking all the rocks so that no one else can have the rock, because at most you can have 8. And it's very unlikely that you're going to get that because you would have to use the swap space and the rock space and then the rock and the swap, and you're doing almost nothing else in order to get all that rock. And for what purpose? What are you trying to do with all of that? There's no reason to do that. It hasn't come up in any of the 7 games we played where someone wanted to take a resource and couldn't. So that's not an issue. The issue is more, can you get the badges and keep other people from getting badges? And this is far easier in a 2-player game because, of course, you have only one other person to look at. You can track their resources more closely. Have they used their canteen, and can they get to the end of the trail? Are we competing for the same things? Do I see someone collecting 3 rocks and 2 leaves, and I know there's a badge at the end there, and I may not visibly look like I can take it, but I have a badge in my hand that will actually reward me with a rock and allow me to take that badge before them? If so, I want to use my canteen, get there first, and stiff them, so ideally they won't be able to transform their resources and they will waste their time having to move down to the end of the trail to hopefully, for them, pick up something there. Of course, I don't know what they have in their hand, and I don't know what's going to be flipped from the deck. Maybe I'm going to stick them with resources they can't use, and maybe nothing will happen and I've just used my canteen for nothing. It's hard to make plans along those lines. It's very short-term planning for the most part, and that short-term planning is definitely exacerbated in games with 3 and 4 players because the badges, the public badges, change much more frequently as more players are bouncing around the trails. As you add more players to the game, you are much more focused on the hidden badge that you have because, of course, only you can do that. You can save up the resources and ensure that you are going to get at least 1 badge, because you can try to plan for things in a 4-player game, but in most cases, both of those badges will not be there by the time you get to the end of the trail. Probably none of them. And so you have more an incentive to just get lots of stuff, and ideally you can get something when you get to the end. It feels a little more jumbled and less planning relevant with more players in the game, because there is that issue where the targets are changing more frequently than you can plan for. And so it's kind of like going on a trip and you're just packing everything because you don't know what to expect. It's the $99 trip where you don't know where you're going. So we're going to bring swim trunks and a heavy parka at the same time because who knows where we're going to go. It's a little different. It's a very different feel with the different player counts, again, because of the changeover of the badges. 2 players, you can focus a lot more on what the other player is doing. Now, you have a hidden element in the badge card that each player has in their hand, so you've got some uncertainty of what other people can do, and then you have a secondary hidden element with the photo system. It seems a little bolted on and extraneous. It gives some hidden scoring element, and I can understand why it exists because it does add uncertainty. You just can't look at what the other player has exactly and know that you're ahead, because you can see, oh, they've got 5 photos, so potentially that's up to 10 points. I'm not sure exactly how many 3s and 2s are in the deck, but let's say up to 10 points. And maybe they have a bird edge, which is going to give them another 4 points. So how am I doing relative to them? It's harder to judge given the hidden point system, but sometimes it just doesn't matter so much, because you're going to flip over the photo deck and you're given choices like this, where it's like, okay, there's a 1 point difference, but otherwise they're the same. Or I just drew 2 1s and who cares? And there's another one. They're very similar in how they come out, and so the discard pile ends up just being a lot of 1s and 0s with birds. And when you flip it back over to go through it again, it feels like you're getting remainders, and it matters even less. The photos are less relevant, especially as you add more players to the game, because it feels like you can go hard for birds, or you should just not care about birds at all, with photos being scattered among more players. Do I care enough to focus on stopping at the photo space and taking a turn that might give me a point, when instead I can get to the end and get a badge that is minimum a point, but probably more? And then possibly a bonus along the way, or giving more resources, or a badge that has a photo attached to it as a supplemental bonus. The photos feel less relevant as you add more players in the game, just because their bonuses are diffused among all the people in the game. The hidden element I understand is important. I can see why it's there, but it also feels like I don't care about it as much as the badges. It's just this little mystery that may or may not be worth doing. One player pointed out as well, it's a little odd that a big part of the hallmark of parks and trails as well is all the artwork with the 59 Park series, but the photos, of course, they don't show that. You just look at the back and it says plain brown, and all the artwork's on the other side that you are going to collect in front of you face down, and then no one sees until the end of the game, when you will see it for 5 seconds when you say, oh, I got 5 points from photos. Okay, add that to my score, done. It's all the artwork that is mostly invisible. Maybe you sit and look at your photo cards yourself while other people are taking their turns and you enjoy it that way. I'm not really sure. So the game as a whole works beautifully. It's simple. It goes along. It's got some choices about what you're trying to do and whether to jump to the end or not. You can pay attention to how the trail is laid out. If you see that the resources, like there's the stone resource is the far right one. That's the one that's going to be flipped over first. So now you're going to get 2 stone instead of 1. Okay. Maybe that's relevant for the badges that are coming up, or the badge you have in your hand, but it's also just chance. If you don't have a stone badge, well then who cares? If the stone badges aren't face up, who cares? You're just getting more resources that don't really matter. So it feels like it matters, but sometimes it doesn't matter, or just chance will overcome any planning that you tried to do. So it's the variability without really being a difference. It's not clear. I played 7 times and it feels like maybe it's relevant, but only a quarter of the time that you have the order of how things come up. I mean, sure, okay, this game, the photo flipped first. I don't know whether that's important because, again, I don't value photos as highly. So there's an overview of the game. It works really well, and it's a challenge to try to do well in it. I don't think I've won any of my 7 games. Maybe all my comments are from sour grapes here, that I've done terribly versus other people and have not chosen and planned as well as them. And yeah, it's all on me, just for making poor choices. Maybe my assessment of the photos is all wrong, again, because I don't find them valuable, but I'm losing. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's hard to say. One side note here, Trails is initially going to debut and it's going to be a Target exclusive title. And what's kind of amazing, I don't normally talk about prices in videos because I figure that is your business. I don't know whether price is relevant to you or how relevant it is. Or of course, maybe you just play someone else's copy. You're going to borrow it. You're going to find it at a library. Whatever. Price issue is always more important, or you can justify more why you would pay for something or not pay for something and do it for all the reasons that you want to do it with. So I normally don't talk about whether a game is of value or not. What's funny though is looking at Trails, which is going to have a MSRP of 20 US dollars versus Parks, which is $50. And I don't know, I am speculating here, but Parks has been on Target shelves for quite a while, and I imagine it has done well because I've not seen it on clearance in any of the Targets I've been in. But I can imagine Target representatives, people in the Target Games group, looking at this and saying, oh yeah, this is very nice. We've had nice sales. This is a beautiful game. It's got great components and packaging and all sorts of things, but it's $50. Hey, Keymaster Games, if you could come up with a cheaper package that has similar gameplay, we would buy X thousand copies of that. Do you want to check? And Keymaster wrote to Henry Audubon and said, hey, can we make a Parks-like game that has similar artwork and a similar feel, but is much smaller? And so now we've got this $20 price point instead of a $50 price point. And Target's like, heck yeah, we will give you a giant check for X thousand copies and exclusivity for X months, Y months, gotta have different variables here. And that's what's happened. Again, this is all speculation, but I've talked with individuals at Target over time and different publishers and get an idea of how some of this works, where retailers, especially big box retailers, will make specific requests of publishers. We are looking for something at this price point. We want game X that we already sell, but we want it with a twist, or we want something different or different packaging or whatever it is that will be custom to them or just very particular for their market. And you can kind of see why Trails would exist, because again, you're looking at a $20 price point, which is something that lots more people are going to just casually pick up compared to this $50 game. Target's going to sell a ton of these, and rather Keymaster is going to sell a lot of these. And it's a very nice design that ideally will introduce people to modern games with something beautiful on the table that's easy to play and get into, and something of a challenge, as clearly I've seen from my win-loss record. There you go. A review of Trails with a touch of Parks.